You might ask why kindness isn't a virtue. Well, the Stoics put virtue first, but they also teach us how to make good decisions. Seneca, a famous Stoic philosopher, once said that wherever there is a person, there is a chance to be kind. But what happens when our kindness goes in the wrong direction and becomes a veil that blocks our way to virtue? Let's think about it together. Have you ever found yourself showing kindness so much that it took away from your own happiness? Or maybe you used kindness as a shield to avoid facing hard facts. Friends, these times of too much or the wrong kind of kindness are what we want to shine a light on today as we go through these 10 ways. I want you to think about, question, and interact with the ideas presented. Are there times in your own life when kindness has not been the guiding light of virtue, but rather a shadow casting doubt on your path? How can we balance our natural desire to be kind with the knowledge to know when it serves us and when it doesn't? Let's look into this complicated dance of kindness and wisdom together. Stoic ideals that have stood the test of time show us how to live with virtue, strength, and true kindness in our hearts. Come with me on this journey of understanding. Maybe by doing this, we'll find a greater link to ourselves and the world around us. Stay with us until the end of the journey, and don't miss any of the important stops along the way. Each milestone lesson has useful information that will help you live a better life. Number 1. When being nice makes you take on too much. In the search for virtue, kindness is like a lighthouse that points us towards selflessness and care. But like a double-edged sword, if we let this virtue grow out of hand, it leads us to the situation where kindness makes you take on too much. Let's think of a real-life example. A ship's captain whose ship is full of goods, meant for faraway shores, keeps loading it up because he has a giving spirit. Overloaded with supplies because he wanted to help as many people as possible, but the extra weight makes the ship less stable, which puts at risk the mission he set out to complete. In the same way, when we do too many good things without thinking about our limits, we risk our lives tipping over from the weight of our good intentions. Now think about your own life. Have you ever felt the strain of being generous, the tiredness that comes from giving without stopping? Try your best to be nice. Stoicism teaches us not to avoid kindness, but to accept it with care, knowing that genuine kindness includes being kind to oneself. Now let's talk about your own experiences. Have you ever been drained not by a lack of goodwill, but by too much of it? Have you ever become so caught up in other people's needs that your own well-being began to suffer? When we break down in this Stoic thought, we are reminded that true kindness isn't just giving. It's also about knowing our limits and being aware that in order to truly help others, we must also take care of ourselves. So let's make sure that our generosity doesn't leave us empty. Kindness should be practiced in a way that uplifts our spirits without tying them down with obligations that are out of our reach. This balanced approach is where we find the true essence of kindness. It helps both the giver and the receiver, creating a world where everyone respects and lives in harmony. Number 2. When being kind lets other people take advantage of you. Kindness shines like a bright thread through the complex web of human interactions, connecting people with compassion and understanding. But there is a deep, somber question we must ask ourselves. What happens when kindness turns into the very way others take advantage of us? Consider a story from the writings of the great philosopher Seneca that shows how dangerous it can be to be too kind. In the busy city of Rome, a Stoic philosopher sees a man who is too kind and gives his cloak to someone in need. As word of his unbridled kindness spreads, more and more people come to him with requests until he is left shivering without even his tunic. Seneca warns that no one who cares about their own well-being should offer themselves to the mercy of others without limits. That being said, this story is not an attack on generous. It's a call for balance. It teaches us that if we aren't careful, kindness can turn into a way to be taken advantage of, leaving us feeling empty and sad. How often do we go above and beyond in order to be seen as kind, only to feel undervalued and ignored? More importantly, how do we draw the line between kindness and selflessness? Stoicism does not tell us to harden our hearts, but to strengthen them with knowledge. This way, our acts of kindness are both a choice and a representation of our inner strength. By taking a Stoic approach, we learn to offer our kindness not as an endless well, but as a valuable resource bestowed with intention and foresight. It is in this balance that we find true virtue. Kindness that uplifts without being mixed up. We extend our kindness not as naive, but as a conscious choice, backed by the strength of our character and the clarity of our judgment. In this way, we live up to the Stoic ideal by being kind in a way that is as strong as it is sincere, making sure that our goodwill becomes a beacon of virtue instead of a weakness that can be used for evil. People often think of kindness as a trait that makes both the giver and the receiver better. Too much kindness, on the other hand, can sometimes lead to being taken advantage of in a world where not everyone is good. To make sure that your kindness is not taken advantage of, you need to know how to mix being kind with keeping your self-respect. Through the view of Stoicism, we will talk about how to find this careful balance and make sure that your kindness is a strength, not a weakness. Know the signs of exploitation. It's important to know how to tell if someone is taking advantage of your kindness. This includes people who only contact you when they need something, who break your rules over and over, or who make you feel bad when you say no. If you are aware of these habits, you can deal with the problem before it gets worse. Make your limits clear. A big part of Stoic thought is setting and sticking to clear limits. Setting limits isn't a mean thing to do. It's just being aware of your own wants and boundaries. Make it clear to others what your limits are and stick to them. This keeps people from thinking that you are weak because you are kind. Develop respect for yourself. Stoicism says that respecting yourself is a necessary part of having a good life. Self-respect means knowing how valuable you are and not letting other people take that away from you. Keeping your self-respect shows that you are kind because you are strong, not because you want to be liked. Learn how to communicate assertively. Being nice doesn't mean you have to do nothing. You can say what you want and need in a clear and polite way when you use assertive communication. To do this, you have to stand up for yourself without being mean. Being forceful will help make sure that your kindness is returned in kind and not used against you. Think and change. Self-reflection is an important part of being a Stoic. Think about the people you've helped and see if they seem to be taking advantage of your kindness. Change how you do things if you find that it is. This could mean being more picky about who you show kindness to, or coming up with new ways to help others without putting your own health at risk. You can make sure that your kindness stays a good thing by following these Stoic ideals every day. You can build better, more respectful relationships with others if you find a balance between being kind, self-respecting, and bold. Number 3, when being kind makes you give too much. If we want to be kind, which is a virtue praised by both societies and philosophies, we should be careful. Epictetus, a Stoic philosopher whose ideas have been around for thousands of years, told a story about a man who gave away everything he owned. His doors were never shut, his table was always set for guests, and his hands were always open and emptying. But as the seasons changed, he found himself alone and poor. not because his kindness wasn't appreciated, but because it had become expected, a right rather than a gift. Epictetus said, "In your efforts to be kind, don't make yourself helpless. True kindness is not just giving, but giving wisely." This story isn't just about the dangers of being kind. It also relates to a greater Stoic lesson about how important it is to have balance and wisdom in our values. When kindness turns into selflessness, it not only puts our health at risk, it can also weaken the very virtue we were trying to show. The Stoics teach us that virtue should not ruin us, but rather make us thrive. They remind us that too much giving can sometimes weaken the foundations on which our ability to give is built. Stoics were ancient Greek philosophers who taught us about the golden mean and how to find balance in all parts of life. They thought that even the most noble virtues, like kindness, could lead us astray if we had too much of it. To help you understand this, think of a lighthouse and how its beam guides ships through the night. Your kindness is like that beam. It guides, comforts, and gives to those around you. But what happens when it shines so brightly and non-stop that it blinds you to your own needs? Worse goes out on its own. Marcus Aurelius, a Stoic emperor whose writings on life continue to inspire, once said, "Love only what happens. It was meant to be greater harmony." In this gentle reminder that to live without limits is to invite discord into one's soul, because by giving too much, we risk depleting our reserves and not being able to serve love or live with the vibrancy we cherish, let us carry on the Stoic legacy of balanced virtue weaving into our lives, a kindness that is as smart as it is deep. Let us give until we are full, but in a way that benefits both the giver and the receiver, embodying the true essence of Stoic wisdom. If you agree with us and like the Stoic concept, please leave a note below to show that you do. Number 4. Sometimes being kind makes you forget about yourself. Have you ever thought that your kindness, which is a highly valued and sought-after virtue, might be the very thing that makes you neglect your health? This question, which may seem counterintuitive at first, can lead to a deep, somber reflection on self-care and the balance that our virtues need. With their deep knowledge of human nature, the Stoics knew that true kindness must come from self-awareness and balance. After all, how can someone truly feed someone else when they are hungry themselves? Through the ages, one said, "It's not what happens to you that matters, but how you react to it." This simple but deep statement holds the key to understanding what we're talking about now. Kindness in its purest form shouldn't make us weaker. Instead, it should make us stronger and more abundant, so that we can be generous from a place of strength and plenty. Let's work on cultivating kindness, a trait praised by both societies and beliefs. Giving too much can lead to neglecting our own needs, dreams, and well-being. This is not the Stoic way. Stoicism teaches us that putting others before ourselves is an imbalance and a departure from the natural order where taking care of oneself and others go hand in hand. Picture a lamp that lights up the room, but slowly goes out as it does so, leaving nothing behind. This is what Stoicism warns about: the possible cost of kindness without wisdom. The candle must first keep its flame alive. To keep shining our kindness on the world, we must also take care of our own health and happiness. Let us embrace the Stoic virtue of moderation, remembering that taking care of oneself is not selfish, but necessary. It's the basis for real, long-lasting kindness. In this way, we embody the true essence of Stoicism, where kindness and self-care coexist in harmony, leading us to a life of fulfillment, balance, and deep compassion. Number 5. When kindness makes you always try to please everyone. Let's look at this Stoic way of thinking by telling a story. One day, a Stoic philosopher famous in Athens for his deep peace and wisdom was watching the busy life around him. He saw a man who, in his kindness, tried to be everything to everyone. Every day, the man would bend and sway like a reed in the wind, trying to satisfy everyone's whims. The philosopher approached the man and told him a story. If you keep trying to please everyone, you'll end up like a ship lost at sea, tossed around by every gust of wind, instead of like a lighthouse. Real kindness. The Stoic kind isn't about giving up your own needs to help others. It's about being a strong, honest example that doesn't change course every time someone asks you to, but stays true to your values and principles. As simple as this story may seem, it captures a central idea in Stoic thought. Real kindness starts with developing a strong sense of self-respect and inner harmony. It's not about giving in to other people's wants, but about following our own moral code. We can break free from the chains of people-pleasing and live a life of authenticity and integrity if we follow reason and virtue and seek approval from within instead of from outside sources. Let this Stoic wisdom light our path of kindness when it leads us to give up our values and well-being in the endless pursuit of others. Instead of trying to get everyone's praise, let's try to be the lighthouse that shines brightly and steadily. Our light won't be seen by everyone, but it will help us find our way through the storm. We are halfway through today's lesson. Your participation is a great source of support for our mission to teach more people about the true values of Stoicism. Please like and share this video to teach your family and friends these lessons, or leave a comment. Thank you for reading this. If you are ready for the next 5 lessons, I value your life. Kindness is often seen as a good thing to do and a way to get along with others and make the world a better place. But when being kind turns into having to please everyone, it can make you lose your own ethics and self-respect. This lesson talks about the idea of being too kind, what it means, and how to find a balance between being kind and being yourself. Getting to know excessive kindness. Putting the wants of others ahead of your own all the time, even if it hurts your own health, is an example of being too kind. Because they want everyone to like and accept them, they do things that aren't good for them to please other people. Effects that are bad for personal health. It's possible to feel stressed, burned out, and angry when you try to please everyone. People who do this often forget about their own wants and goals, which can lead to a loss of self-respect and happiness. Setting up healthy limits. To stay away from the problems that come with being too kind, it's important to set clear limits. This means knowing your limits and telling other people about them in a clear way. Setting limits helps you be kind while also taking care of your own needs. How and why to be assertive. Being outspoken means being honest about your feelings, wants, and thoughts without putting other people down. This is a very important skill to keep from being too kind. Being assertive lets you be kind without putting your own ideals and health at risk. Choosing to be kind to yourself. When you practice self-compassion, you are kind and understanding to yourself, just like you are to other people. It helps you see how valuable you are, and make sure that your acts of kindness don't hurt your health and happiness. Being kind is a good thing, but it shouldn't make you give up your own needs and try to please other people. You can stay in a healthy mix by learning about the effects of being too kind and using techniques like setting limits, being firm, and being kind to yourself. This way of doing things will make sure that your kindness is real and lasts, which is good for you and the people around you. Number 6. When being kind makes things worse in life. Being too nice is not helpful in the same way that too much honey is not. Epictetus, a sage from the heart of Stoicism, told us to think about the balance in everything, even in kindness. Now, let's look at how too much kindness can be our Achilles heel. When we show kindness without thinking, without the Stoic virtue of wisdom, we set ourselves up for disappointment. The uninvited guest. Imagine extending your hand over and over again, only to have it ignored. The Stoics remind us that our actions and kindness must be based on reason, not just the emotional satisfaction of being needed or liked. Think about this. When we do something nice with the hope of getting something in return, are we really being kind, or are we just trading our actions for future returns? Marcus Aurelius, another pillar of Stoicism, would argue that true kindness asks for nothing in return. It is an act aligned with our nature, not a seed planted for harvest. When our kindness is genuine, we do not tether our well-being to the responses of others, thereby shielding ourselves from the sting of disappointment in the grand theatre of life. Stoicism teaches us to play our part with virtue and integrity, to extend kindness not as a gambler throws his coins, but as the sun casts its rise freely and without expectation. Let us be kind, but let us also be wise. Let us not allow our kindness to lead us into a quagmire of disappointment. Instead, let us offer our goodness with open eyes, knowing that the true measure of our actions lies not in the gratitude we receive, but in the virtue of the act itself. So, my friends, as we navigate the waters of kindness, let us steer our ship with the compass of Stoic wisdom, ensuring that our kindness is a beacon of our virtue, not a harbinger of our downfall. People often think of kindness as a virtue, something that makes our exchanges better and helps us build good relationships. But being kind can sometimes have bad effects that you didn't mean for it to. The lesson talks about the different kinds of kindness and shows how being too kind can make things worse in real life. Letting unhealthy behavior happen, meaning being kind can sometimes mean letting someone do something hurtful or dangerous. For example, giving money to a friend who has bad money habits over and over again might stop them from learning how to handle their money properly. If a parent always finds a reason for their child's bad behavior, that child won't learn what will happen if they keep doing what they're doing. This could cause problems in the future. Being used for your own gain. Being too kind can make you easy for people to take advantage of. Some people may see your kindness as a weakness and use it against you by expecting favors without giving anything back. Someone at work who always asks you to cover their shifts because they know you won't say no, which makes you more stressed out and adds to your job. Getting tired and angry. Putting the wants of others ahead of your own all the time can make you tired and angry. Being kind all the time can make you forget about your own health, which can leave you physically and emotionally worn out. For example, always taking on extra work at work can make you feel stressed and unappreciated, which can make you dislike your co-workers or your job. Not having any limits. Being too nice usually means you don't have good personal limits. People may enter your personal space if you don't set clear boundaries. This can make you feel like you have no control over your life. Allowing friends or family to make big claims on your time and energy without thinking about your own needs can make you feel suffocated and ignored. Lack of balance in relationships. Relationships work best when both people accept and balance each other. When one person is always giving and the other is always getting, the relationship can become unhealthy and tense. In a love partnership, if one person always gives up something and the other always gets something in return, it can make both people feel cheated and unhappy. Being kind is a good thing, but it's important to know when it's hurting someone more than helping them. You can be kind in a way that helps you and those around you by setting healthy limits, making sure that relationships work both ways, and putting your own health first. Don't forget that it's okay to say no and put yourself first. Number 7. When kindness makes you think you can change others. Has anyone ever been so kind that they thought their warmth and giving could change someone else's soul? In the grand fabric of life, each of us is just a lively and unique thread. Stoic philosophy tells us to live in balance with nature. To do this, we must know that each person and each thread in this complex web is separate and independent. You have control over your mind, not outside events. Understand this, and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius, a great example of Stoic thought, once said these words: "Spread the deep truth that our kindness shouldn't be used to shape other people's will or character, but should be a genuine expression of who we are." When we show kindness to others with the hidden hope or expectation of sparking change, we tie our tranquility to their whims and will. This, my friends, is a recipe for disappointment and disillusionment. Stoicism teaches us that real peace comes from knowing and accepting what we can control and what we can't do anything about. Therefore, let us be kind to others without expecting anything in return. Let our kindness be like a river that flows smoothly through lives without trying to change its course. Remember that it is not our job to change others. Our job is to live a good life, set a good example, and create an inner garden where peace blooms regardless of what other people do or don't do. In this dance of life, let us not be puppeteers but dancers, moving gracefully and extending our hands in kindness, not to control others, but to share in the joy of existence. In the grand scheme of things, it is not our kindness that will change others. It may be our example that will inspire change as naturally and beautifully as dawn brings a new day. What do you think about this lesson? Please share your thoughts in the comments. From a Stoic point of view, being kind and believing that our deeds can make other people better are often linked ideas. This idea, on the other hand, can cause anger and regret. Stoicism tells us that being kind is a good thing, but it's also important to know how much power we have over other people. The ability to change comes within each person, and trying to force others to change cannot always work. We will look at the Stoic view of kindness and how important it is to know how much power we have over other people in this lesson. What kindness means in Stoicism. Being kind is an important Stoic virtue that comes from having kindness and understanding. It shows how human we are and how we are all linked. But Stoicism stresses that being kind should be done without any hopes or hidden goals. Getting to know your own limits. Stoics say that we should focus on what we can change. The things other people do and how they act are not within our control. We should be kind and helpful, but we also need to know that we can't make anyone change. The false sense of control. People often think they can change other people by being kind because they want to feel in control. This way of thinking can make us angry and upset when our efforts don't lead to the results we want. Stoicism teaches us to let go of this false belief and accept other people as they are. Using compassion without attachment. Being compassionate without getting personally involved in the result is known as detached compassion. No matter how other people react to our kindness, we can keep our inner peace and strength by practicing detached compassion. Focusing on getting better. Stoicism tells us to put our energy into getting better and growing as people. We can motivate others without expecting them to change by working on our values and setting a good example. Our deeds can be a lighthouse, but each person has to make the choice to change on their own. Kindness is an important part of Stoic thought, but it's also important to know its limits. Knowing the limits of our power and practicing kindness that isn't attached to the other person can help us stay calm and avoid getting frustrated. Focusing on what we can control, which is a Stoic concept, lets us be kind without expecting anything in return. This leads to a more peaceful and happy life. Number 8. When being kind makes you worry about other people's opinions. How come we sometimes think that being kind to others is the key to making them change? Let's look at this idea through the lens of Stoicism and see what problems this view can cause. Think of each person as a castle whose walls are made up of experiences and beliefs that have been built up over a lifetime. Now think of your kindness as a gentle breeze, not a blasting ram. It can touch the walls and maybe even caress the banners on top, but can it change the shape of the fortress? The fortress's self-Stoic advice tells us that change, especially in other people, is like the path of the stars. It's out of our hands. Seneca, a sage from our Stoic lineage, once said, "We are waves of the same sea, leaves of the same tree, flowers of the same garden." This beautiful imagery reminds us that even though we are all connected, each wave, leaf and flower has its own essence and path. Your kindness, while noble and pure, is like a breeze in the garden. It can move the leaves, but not control their growth. When we show kindness with the hope that it will change others, we set ourselves up for disappointment and maybe even a loss of spirit. True kindness is given without expecting anything in return or wanting the other person to change. It is the embodiment of our highest selves and is freely given, like the sun shining on both good and bad. So let's not tie our happiness to the changing tides of other people. Let us instead find joy in the act of kindness itself, in the sincerity of our intentions, and in the happiness that comes from acting in line with our nature and virtue. Let our kindness be a gift, not a plan, a reflection of who we are, not a way to change things. Like an oak tree that doesn't bend with the wind but stands tall, providing shade and shelter. Let us be a shining example of virtue, kindness, and strength, inspiring change not by force, but by the quiet power of our unwavering presence. Number 9. When being kind makes you ignore what other people say. In the grand theatre of life, we all have many parts, and in each one we see things from a different point of view. It's like we're all artists working on the same picture, but using different colors and brushstrokes. Stoicism tells us that recognizing and respecting these differences is not only okay, but also necessary. Just because two people agree doesn't mean they are good. Marcus Aurelius told us that harmony in thinking is not the highest level of moral power. He meant that when we use kindness as a veil to hide our true feelings or to avoid conflict, we're not building real relationships, we're just putting up fronts. Imagine walking through a garden full of statues, each one representing a relationship in your life. Would you rather these statues be just representations of relationships, lacking the essence that gives them meaning, or would you rather they are real people who can interact with each other, even if they disagree sometimes? Stoicism doesn't support conflict. Instead, it encourages us to be honest and strong enough to stand by our beliefs and voice our opinions with courage and compassion. It's in disagreements that we test and strengthen our relationships by seeing them not as sources of conflict, but as chances to learn and grow. To honor the Stoic virtue of courage, let us not be afraid to say what we really think while pretending to be kind. Let kindness not shut you up or stop you from seeing the value in different points of view. Instead, let it be the light that guides you through the tough conversations that push you to grow as a person and strengthen your relationships with others. People often think of kindness as a trait, a sign of good character, and a way to make interactions better. But sometimes being kind can make us forget about important differences, which could let problems get worse or allow bad behavior to happen. In the setting of Stoicism, it is very important to know when and how to state your opinion without losing your kindness. This lesson looks at the balance between being kind and being firm, which helps us handle arguments with grace and understanding, what kindness is and how far it can go. Being kind is important for building good relationships and getting along with others. That being said, it has limits. Foregoing arguments out of kindness can cause problems that aren't fixed and personal anger. Knowing the limits of kindness is important for keeping your own ethics and keeping relationships healthy. Why being assertive is important. Being assertive means being able to say what you think and need in a clear and polite way. It's not about being mean or argumentative. It's about standing up for yourself while still considering other people's points of view. Being outspoken makes sure that differences are dealt with in a healthy way instead of being ignored. Being kind and honest at the same time. Being kind doesn't mean avoiding tough talks. It means treating them with kindness and care. Being honest about why you don't agree with someone while still being kind helps build trust and understanding. Making sure that everyone feels heard and valued is an important part of open communication. Getting the Stoic point of view. Stoicism tells us to accept what we can't change and focus on the things we can. This means being aware of our own feelings and reactions when we disagree. Being calm and logical when we disagree with someone is the best way to handle arguments without having them turn nasty or angry. Tips on how to effectively handle disagreements. Say I sentences to talk about how you feel without pointing the finger at other people. Active listening can help you see things from the other person's point of view. Find shared ground and ways to solve the problem that work for everyone. Make sure there are clear limits so that being kind doesn't lead to neglecting yourself. Think about conflicts to learn and grow from them and make future encounters better. We can handle differences in a fair and effective way by combining kindness with assertiveness and Stoic principles. This will help us build better and more genuine relationships. Number 10. When kindness masks real connections. Why do we put on the kindness mask sometimes to hide the real ties that give life its greatest meaning? Let's look at this problem with the sharp eyes of Stoicism, having the courage to see the truth behind the mask in the web of human relationships. Real relationships are what make patterns last the longest. Stoicism teaches us that virtue is not in the mask we wear, but in who we really are. Epicus, one of our philosophers, asks us to think about whether we are using kindness as a shield to avoid the frailty of real relationship. Think about the tree that is big and strong, not trying to hide its wounds, but still giving you shade and protection. In the same way, when we hide our true selves under the cover of perpetual kindness, we keep other people from getting to know and love us for who we really are. Real kindness. Stoics say that being real, present, and truly caring is more important than always putting on a happy face. This is true even when it means showing our flaws and facing our truths. Real connections are made in the crucible of authenticity, connections that stand the test of time and circumstance. So let's take off our masks and let our kindness be a way to connect with real people. We need to be brave and honest, and our relationships should show us as we really are, because it's in the truth that we find the deepest beauty and power. We're now on a journey to learn more about ourselves, with 10 ways that being kind will ruin your life. It's a powerful warning that kindness should lift people up, not weigh them down, that kindness can lead us astray in surprising ways. Let us use the wisdom and discernment that Stoicism teaches us to make our acts of kindness more powerful. May these reflections help you see kindness not as a tool, but as an expression of your truest self. Remember that it's through the balanced and wise use of kindness that we truly thrive and make a difference in the world. If you found today's journey with Stoicism inspiring, please like the video and leave a comment. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future videos. Goodbye and see you again.